Hello guys, I'm AJ. I'm a sophomore at Columbus State University, currently majoring in robotics engineering, and today I'm going to be sharing my testimony to you guys. As many of you guys may know, I was born in Singapore, raised in Singapore for about 11 years. Life in Singapore was pretty simple except like education. Education was pretty hard, but my dad introduced track and field to me and my twin brother at an early age. We were like pretty good at it to the point where we got an opportunity to come to the US to participate in Junior Olympics, which is like a big track event. So me and my brother won gold in Junior Olympics that got the scouts to they kind of explained to my parents how like big opportunities can be opened up for me and my brother in the US, and they should think about moving to the US. So when we went back to Singapore, my parents like prayed about it and felt like God told them to move to the US, as my mom applied for a job as a microbiologist and she got it. And so our whole family moved to the States around 2011. When we moved here, we resided in Tucker, Georgia. I went like middle school and high school like every other kid, and it was pretty simple till I got to high school. When I got to high school, I started doing really good at track and my studies were really good, and then by the time I got into senior year, I had myself like a girlfriend, my brother did, and life was like really fun senior year. And then I get a call back from Singapore's army, saying that I gotta come back for a 2-year mandatory service. So my parents knew about it, but they didn't think that they would call me at like an early age, like at 18. So when they called us, I was super shocked because I had like a few offers for college, and like, I was doing really good at track, and I was just super happy with life. And then all of a sudden I hear this, and like I was just super upset. And it's like I couldn't even skip the army because like two people signed a bond saying that if I don't show up, they would have to pay $175,000, and if I was to ever go back to Singapore without serving army, I'll be put to jail. So this is something that I had to do because like my parents always told me to like abide by the government's authority, because the Bible says to like pretty much like respect the authorities and abide by the rules and laws. And so at the end of the senior year, I packed all my things up and I headed to Singapore. The thing I didn't know was they have like, so 80% of Singapore's army stay in Singapore, but 20% go out, and that's like the infantry batch. And so me and my brother were put into the infantry batch, which we had no clue of until like we landed in Singapore. That they told us that we'll be part of the infantry batch that is like an island off Singapore. So in the first day of enlistment, we went there. They took like a boat and brought us to the island, and pretty much like put us in like a prison cell. Like it was nasty. It was like bathrooms were disgusting and everything. And so this if you know where Singapore is, it's like the furthest country away from the US. So if it's like 8 p.m. here, it'll be 8 a.m. over there. And so I couldn't talk to my parents, couldn't talk to my girlfriend at that time, and it was like super tough. The first 3 months of army is the basic military training, which is called the BMT. And so the first 3 months, like we will all be put into that island, and we cannot leave the island for that 3 months. And so the first 3 months was very tough because like I was like adapting into army life, and so like I was not a civilian anymore and stuff. So, and being in infantry, like I had to wake up at 4 a.m. and sleep at 12 every single night, and some nights I couldn't even sleep because I'll be thinking about what's going on with my family and everything. So the first 2 weeks of enlistment, it was personally my hardest because it was like adapting to army life, and I just missed like my friends, my family, while everyone else's like friends and family were in Singapore, but mine was like all the way across the globe. Like I don't know when the next time I'll see them is. And even like for my brother, they split me and my brother up. Like I went to Alpha Company and he went to Bravo Company, and he was the only person I had in Singapore. That's when I started losing like my faith in God, because I was like, God, why are you putting me through this? Like all my friends are like literally like partying in Singapore, in US and everything, and well, I was trying to be faithful to you throughout like my time in the US. Like, how are you gonna put me in this spot and like take me away from my scholarship, my family, and everything? And that's when I started doubting God like crazy, and I just started reading my Bible and everything. And so, like after I think the third week, we had like marksman's tests and like IBBT tests. These are all like fitness. These are shooting tests. Like it's all like the army tests we go through. And so, one of my dad's friend was like, when you finish that 3 months, you can get posted out to like a 9 to 5 job. So you pretty much wouldn't be like in like a hassle. You wouldn't be like in the army environment like 24/7. After 5 o'clock, you can go back home in Singapore and like do whatever you want. And at that time, I wanted to like represent Singapore for track. And so, like he told my dad, you could just do like really bad the first 3 months in BMT, and then like the officers can post you out to like a 9 to 5 job instead of like an officer cadet school or sergeant cadet school. So like I was thinking, I was like, yo, maybe I should just do that because like I want like an easy way out. But my dad was like, God gave you given talents and stuff, and you gotta multiply. You gotta use it, multiply it. So on that day, like I like at night, like I couldn't sleep because we only had like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And so I pretty much like took the Bible and I prayed, and I was like, God, I'm just gonna open the Bible and give me a verse. The officers can post you out to like a 9 to 5 job instead of like an officer cadet school or sergeant cadet school. So like I was thinking, I was like, yo, maybe I should just do that because like I want like an easy way out. But my dad was like, God gave you given talents and stuff, and you gotta multiply. You gotta use it, multiply it. So on that day, like I like at night, like I couldn't sleep because we only had like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And so I pretty much like took the Bible and I prayed, and I was like, God, I'm just gonna open the Bible and give me a verse. So I opened the Bible. The first verse I see was Jeremiah 29:11. Every verse in the Bible like lifts you up in some way. So I was just like, oh, this is nothing. So I closed back the Bible and then I prayed. I was like, God, like I'm gonna give it my best. Just please protect me and be here for me. And at that time, I was like going through some troubles with my girlfriend back then because it was just communication, like all that problem. And so I was pretty down, but I was like, I'm just gonna focus on like my army fitness and like shooting range and everything. So throughout from that 3-week mark all the way to the end of the 3 months, like me and my brother started doing really good at like the army, like fitness test, shooting test and everything. My brother became marksman. He got, I think he didn't even miss a shot. He got like 29 out of 29 shots. I got 28 out of 29. I was number 1 in my company and he was number 1 in his company. And so both our names like popped up, and the sergeants were like, why is there like 2 of the same guys like number 1 in their platoon, and each platoon has like I think like 200 people in it. And so it was like pretty shocking to them that the twins were like number 1 in each of the company, and like it was just crazy how God was with us throughout that whole stage. And so at the last week before we graduate, the 3 months, we have this like jungle training test that we go to. And so we go to the jungle and they like test us like leadership tests and all that to see who qualifies for like officer cadet school and who qualifies for like sergeant cadet school. And so since me and my brother were like top in our class, they were trying to get us to go to officer cadet school, but this was like the last week where they fully test you guys. And so they put me in there, and then like I did really good throughout the whole week. And the last day, like we like crawl up a hill, right? And like they have like a bucket of sand, and in the bucket of sand we don't know what's in there. It could be like envelopes in there. I mean, it was an envelope in there. And so so the sergeant gave us, once we climbed up the hill, and then this was the last day before we graduated. And then so like it was an envelope that was written by my family before I even enlisted in the army. And so I opened up the envelope, and I still have the papers with me. I opened up the envelope, and then like I see all these pictures that my dad like put on the paper, and like he like wrote how we're gonna have like a party when you come back after you graduate and everything. And then I turn around, and then in the back page it was like Jeremiah 29:11 full caps. And before this, so I never told my dad about how I saw the verse and everything, but I already knew like God talked to my parents, talked to me, because this letter was typed before I even enlisted. And so like at that point I just pretty much like just looked up in the sky and I started bawling, because like I haven't thought about family or like anyone for that 3 months, because I was just so like it was just so like packed of just army that I just started bawling my eyes out, and I was just like, God, thank you for being faithful and like being with me this 3 months. But I knew I had another like a year and 7 months left in service, and I was praying. I said, God, just please take care of me. And so after I graduated, the next day I had a week off to come back to the US for like a week, you know. So like we surprised my mom and my sister and everything, and it was all happy for a week. But then we had to go back in less than a week, and so we went back, and that's when they posted us to our batch, like where we're actually gonna go for the rest of the service, like the rest of the 1 year 7 month service. And so I go for the appointment to check what I was gonna get put in, and so they told that me and my brother should go into OCS, but we didn't want that, because like it was just not something that like we wanted to do, you know, because we wanted a little bit more free time for us. Like I wanted to go train and track and everything, and so that's something I didn't want to go into officer cadet school, which is like more work, more like jungle tests, more like vigorous stuff, you know. And so I pretty much told my sergeant, I was like, I really don't want to do it. Can you just post me into 9 to 5? And he respected my my decision. He put me in. But for my brother, like he kept trying to like put 9 to 5, but they kept tearing his paper up, giving him a new officer cadet school paper, and it's like, fill this up, we need you in officer cadet school. But at the end they can't really force him, so they put him to 9 to 5. And so there's 30 like pretty much 30 locations of 9 to 5, and me and my brother ended up in the same location, which is another miracle. So like, you know, we can be closer together. And so we thought once, because this 9 to 5 location is in Singapore, so we won't be in the island anymore. So they put us back into Singapore, and we thought life would be easier after we go back. And so when we actually got put into 9 to 5 and we came home after 5 o'clock, we had a little bit more free time to like, you know, like when you get more free time, you start thinking more, you know, you start like feeling more lonely. And so since it was just me and my brother, we just started thinking about like life back in US, like friends back in US and everything. And we actually both broke up at the same time too, at that period. So I think, and this was like January 2020, and so we were like super lonely and like super sad and everything. And then in the same week, my cousin dies in the US. So like my mom, my dad, and my sister like fly to Philly, because that's where my cousin was, and he was only like 9 and he died. And so my brother is a more like sensitive type, and so like after the breakup, after hearing that my cousin died and everything, like he fell into deep depression, because like he was just super lonely, you know, and like he had nobody to talk to and everything. And like I didn't even know that he was like feeling that type of way. And so like one day, like I get a text message from him. He's like, I'm on top of a building, I wanted to text you, you're the last person I wanted to text you before I jump off this building and everything. And like I was just as shocked at that moment. I was like screaming on the phone. I was like, get down now, because like you don't know what you're doing. You're not thinking about your family, you're not thinking about nobody right now. And then he came down. I pretty much dragged him and locked him in the door. I locked him in the room, and I was like, and I didn't know what to do, because my whole family was in my cousin's house. My mom was like grieving over my cousin, and like the only person I can call was my commander. So I called him and I was like, my brother is like actively suicidal, like I don't know what to do. And he was like, okay, just tomorrow in camp, bring him in and we could like sort something out. And so I knew I couldn't tell my mom about this, because she would just like freak out and pass out. And so I pretty much like called my dad, and I told him like my brother is like actively suicidal and everything. And so since he was actively suicidal, they put him into the psychiatrist hospital for like a week, and they said the only person that can discharge him is one of the parents. So I had to call my dad and tell him. So my dad just left everything. He had to make like an excuse up and like fly over to Singapore and like discharge my brother out of the hospital. And so my dad pretty much stayed with us since then in Singapore. And so like when I went back to the camp, my commander was like, okay, there's this option called PES F, where it's like it's the only way to come out of the army, and this takes about like 8 months to process. And so during that time in army, like I only had like I think a little over a year, and it was just like if I was to do the 8-month process, it will be close to my end of service date. So they were like, do you actually want to go for it, because like it's gonna take 8 months, so like you rather just finish off your army service than try to like apply for this. So I prayed about it, and it felt like it was the right thing to do. And so out of for PESF, I think only like 2% like of all the enlistment like gets to get out of army. So it was like a super rare chance, and like people will always try to fake it to come out of the army. Like people start talking the wall, like trying to act all mental and everything, but like I was already in service for like a good bit, so they knew like my case wasn't like fake or anything. And so they pretty much like my commander pretty much told me to like write everything down, like the breakup, how your cousin died, how you lost his cause, how to like you had to move like from the furthest country away from like Singapore and everything. And so I wrote everything down, and he was like, okay, like I can try to help, because he was gonna retire the next year. So he was like, don't tell this to anyone, but I can try to like help you get out of the army, because he was a 3-star general in our camp. And so like me and Bud just had a favor in his eyes. And so like he was like, for me he was like an angel that like God like literally brought in my life. And so usually like the processing take 8 months, and so he was like, I can't guarantee you that you will actually get it, but I'll try my best. And so this all happens like I think happened like February of 2020. And so COVID started hitting Singapore I think like April May-ish. And so so I never knew like COVID was gonna hit. And so you have to have 4 interviews for the discharge to happen, the honorable discharge from the army. And so this 4 interview takes up like in the span of 8 months. So it's all depending on how fast you get the 4 interviews. To cut short the story, pretty much the 3-star general got all 4 of the interviews in less than like 3 months. And the last interview was the day before all the offices got shut down in Singapore because of COVID. And I got the last flight from Singapore to the US before Singapore shut down and before US shut down. And so me and my brother took that last flight, and we came back, and it was just the craziest thing of how like God worked and like gave us back the like pretty much our life just because we trusted Him. And like I still look back to like some days I still can't sleep because I think about like what I went through and everything. And like and I made a promise to God. I was like, God, if you take me out of the army, like I promise you from now on, like I will stay faithful to you and I won't doubt you and everything. And so like I came back, and like I made sure I put God first and everything. And I came back, and then it was just in time to like apply for college, And so since I already like declined all my college offers and everything, like I couldn't gain anything back because like I lost 1 year of my performance and everything. And so the first coach that reached out to me was a Piedmont College coach. And so I went over to Piedmont, and I was like, oh, all my problems are done, and like I'm happy with God, I'm happy with my family and like friends and everything. But I started my track season, and I tore my hamstring like 4 times, and it was like the worst thing ever. Like I tore it, and then I went through rehab, and then I tore it again, and then I went through rehab. And so it happened about like I think 4 or 5 times. But I knew not to like, how do I say, like doubt God and stuff. And so since I made the promise to God that I wasn't gonna like doubt Him and everything, like I knew God was working something through me throughout Piedmont, even though I tore my hamstring. So I just try to stay as positive as I can. And I knew like I didn't want to stay in Piedmont College, so I decided to like look into another college. And I was actually talking to the Columbus coach my senior year, and I reached out to him again, and he was like, yes, I would love to have you and stuff. And so I transferred over to to Columbus. And so when I transferred to Columbus, I prayed to God that I get a Christian like community, Christian group, because I never had any of that in Piedmont. Like it was a Christian college, but there was no like Christian groups, no FCA, no like BCM, no nothing. And so when I came to Columbus, I was like, God, please give me like a Christian group so I can grow my faith and everything. And so that's when I went to BCM, I went to College House Ministries, I went to Cascade, and then I started going to FCA. And so it was just like God was just like revealing like everything to me, and like he was just answering my prayer.